All right, well, welcome into our episode on the Super Bowl. We had an episode and then YouTube was getting screwed up. They were
The
they were
file kept
apparently as drunk
corrupting,
as Kyle
man.
Shanahan pre-Super Bowl. And it didn't go up. We had such good breakdown, honestly. It was
I
my
know.
favorite episode to date. But
Yeah, it
anyway,
was a
we're
good one.
gonna we're gonna get into the Super Bowl and our breakdown. I think I'm gonna be talking a lot because one of my teams was in it and lost. But anyway, the first point that I wanted to start with was something that we had talked about for like 2 or 3 weeks now, which was Shanahan starting conservative in these games. And I think a big aspect of that is Shanahan's been on record saying that he usually game plans for the game to be low scoring. And so he kind of has a game plan for low scoring, mostly running the ball. But he came out swinging in that first quarter. And honestly, I was so proud of it. Just out of the gate, I was like, thank you. This is what we need. Because, and we saw it in the end. If you want to beat the Chiefs, it is a race to 30. And I've heard that said before. And you might not believe me, and it is a lot easier said than done. But I think if any opponent had scored 30 this year, they beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And because a lot of opponents didn't score 30 or scored, somewhere in the 26 to 22 range. I know the Niners ended up scoring 22. It's just not enough to beat them. Now, I will say the Niners pretty much had this game completely won, other than, and you might not agree with me but with this, but I feel like I've never felt more confident in saying that one play completely changed the game than the punt hitting. I don't even know who it hit their foot,
A
but
rookie. I forget his name.
I don't remember, but that one play completely changed because the Chiefs had only scored 3 points. And at that point, I'm pretty sure. No, I think it was 6 at that point. Because then after that, they scored a touchdown and took the lead. But besides that one touchdown off that drive, which wasn't even an actual touchdown drive by the Chiefs, like 60 of the yards was because of a punt. They didn't score a single touchdown in regulation, only had 12 points. So
Yeah.
just just based on that, before I get into the rest of my pain and suffering, um, I thought that the Niners played a pretty solid game overall. I know that there's going to be a lot of heat. I know Wilkes has already been fired. And say what you want about how he did in the Super Bowl. Like I just said, I like the Niners defense in the Super Bowl. Wilkes showed a horrible ability to call a defensive game plan throughout the entire season. And I think that was the bigger reason why he was let go. But I thought that they played pretty well. What did you think, Tyler?
I mean, we'll get into it a little bit. I don't have as high of an opinion on it.
Yeah.
And part of that was to the Chiefs defense. And that's something I want to highlight very early. Chiefs
Yeah.
defense played out of its mind, did exactly what it needed to do and exactly what it should have done.
Yeah.
Spags, amazing coordinator. This is a Spags Stan account at this point. I love that guy now.
Yeah.
He's cemented himself as a winner. I mean, he's an amazing DB coach. He always gets his secondary to be really good by the end of the year. And I just want to give him credit first because Trent McDuffie, talented, but he's made him even better, right? He was good
McDuffie,
in the
Sneed, yeah.
Sneed was another one too, where he's really broken out this year and had an amazing season. Even Joshua Williams. I mean, if you have three corners that I can name that are good, that's something that most teams would die for. And really,
Yeah.
only the Jets and Seahawks have gotten close to in recent years.
You
Like
need three really strong corners if you want to go deep in my opinion, in the playoffs. Like you saw it with the Bills. They had
they have
because
one.
of injuries, they had Rasul Douglas who was injured and they didn't win.
Yep.
No, I mean I agree with you. I don't think that they played amazing, but I think that I generally felt like they played good enough to win.
Mhm.
And
They were the
I
better team
yeah,
until
I think
overtime.
overall they were the better team. But I was surprised because it didn't end up being like you said. You kind of called that it was going to be a defensive battle. And overall wise, I did really feel like it was. It kind of got away scoring wise at the end, but there were like in regulation, like three total touchdowns scored. I think two by the Niners, one missed
Mhm.
PAT, so then it evened out. But um, three total touchdowns is not very much from two pretty solid offenses through the playoffs. I know the Chiefs offense wasn't very good in the regular season, but through the playoffs, they were pretty solid.
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, really, when you look at it too, one was on a trick play, one was on a drive that kind of started off in the red zone.
yeah,
So when you're looking at how did my defense really do, the trick play you're not going to expect all that much. Is something that isn't on film. You're never really going to know that's coming.
Yeah.
So it would have taken really a miracle for it to not work.
Yeah.
Although it did almost get picked off. I think it was Nick Bolton made a really
Yeah.
good read on the ball, but he did get blocked. That's why they have offensive linemen.
Yeah.
But on a trick play and a drive that gets started in the 20 because of a special teams blunder, that's
Yeah.
one real drive with a touchdown at the end of it that
Yeah.
offense can be like, we worked down the field. We did exactly what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
So both defenses stood out as amazing at keeping both offenses at bay. They kept the explosion down a lot, which is really good. And then, of course, you get into overtime. The explosion kind of came back a little bit, but
Yeah.
that's a separate
I mean,
story.
I mean, by then you're, in overtime, you're over 60 minutes into the game. Like, I didn't really blame by then I didn't really blame the Niners defense for not holding up. I mean, they held up all game. Um, yeah, I mean, the Niners had it in the first half. Like they had it. They were up 10-3. I know you see my note, but it really felt like them not scoring on that drive any points and just allowing the Chiefs to stay in it, get to 10-6, and then the crazy punt happens, they go up. Like had they been able to go up 17-3 at that point, it really feels like Shanahan, yes, he did choke again, kind of. I don't really blame Shanahan as much for it as I do in other games, but it really felt like they needed to put them away. And just like other games, you leave the Chiefs in it and they just find a way to come back. You can't let them stay in it if you want to win the game.
Yeah.
And I know Shanahan is getting a lot of shit right now for his third quarter play calling, which I do agree he probably should have been a little bit more balanced. But he called 8 out of 9 straight, not straight, but 8 out of 9 of the first plays in the third quarter. I don't know if you saw the stat, were all passes. And yes, while the running offense was doing pretty well up to that point, especially in the first quarter, McCaffrey didn't end up with a good stat line. He wasn't really running all that well. Not his fault. Like I thought he was fine, but as far as the Niners offensive line goes, like you said, that defense was very stout, and I didn't really blame Shanahan in that third quarter. Now I wish they were more balanced, but I didn't blame him for going past first in that third quarter, because if you want Shanahan to be aggressive like we've wanted, usually that does mean calling more pass plays than run plays. Now 8 out of 9, I don't know about that, but anyway, I just wanted to bring up that point because I've seen that brought up, and I didn't really have a big problem with that. I didn't think that they lost the game because of that. There were a lot of other places where I felt that they lost the game, especially on that punt, and that was absolutely not one of them.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's something we've talked about in a couple episodes before, but breaking your tendency is different than breaking your identity. And that's a little bit of what happened in that third quarter.
yeah,
Obviously, it's good to break some tendencies, but leaning away completely from the best player in the NFL right now, kind of in Christian McCaffrey, right? Like he was, he had a legendary season. He had an amazing season. He was one of the best players on the field every game, no matter who you were playing. And yet they kind of leaned away from him. He did end up getting 22 carries. They ended up saying they wanted 30. He didn't quite get there, but that's because the game didn't go as they necessarily planned.
yeah. But
But
he also had 8 catches, so it ended up with 30 touches. It was
yeah, absolutely. And he had as many receiving yards as rushing yards, which stands out for his receiving, but it's really bad for his rushing because he only averaged 3.6,
yeah, it was
a long of
3.6.
11. Not very
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
But
It
I
it
mean,
felt like at points that he was running. I feel like when you were watching the game, it felt like he would either get like 6 or 7 yards or he'd get completely stuffed.
yes.
Um, I will say Mike, I think his name's Mike Pennell, the big defensive interior from the Chiefs. He stuffed a couple plays and he was like, I absolutely doesn't deserve Super Bowl MVP, but one of those, not rotational players, but players that come in, have a role, do their role, and they definitely helped. Like on that overtime drive, there was like 2 stops, I think, of him stopping McCaffrey and forcing, longer second or third down. Are you seeing some videos?
No, I looked up his size because I was like, how big
Oh
is he?
yeah,
I just
he's
watched the film today again. So
yeah,
I'm very familiar with that defensive line play.
yeah,
He is 6'4", 332.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, that's
The
why he was stuffing him.
Yeah, and I think overall, I know I have a lot of notes here, Tyler. I won't go over like most of them. That's why I was saying just skip that first part. But
Yes.
overall, that Niners offensive line, if you want to talk about a unit losing the game, it's probably them. And we kind of predicted it coming in. But they did not hold up. Now, McKivitz honestly was not as big a problem. I don't know if you saw the grades, but Aaron Banks, man, did not play well, and Feliciano was not really playing well either. Which one was it that had like a 23 passing grade? It might have been Burford when he came in as backup.
It was both, I
But
believe. Nobody really had a good one in
yeah,
terms
no,
of
that
throws.
whole like Niners interior was getting absolutely blown up, and Chris Jones was a force to be reckoned with. I mean, there's that big play that went viral where he went completely unblocked, but there's a lot of other plays where Chris Jones was getting pressure. Like there was a throw in the third quarter, I think, Debo Samuel deep right end zone. Purdy probably has it, but Chris Jones gets pressure on him. Literally,
Yep.
Purdy has to throw it while getting hit. And another one, McDuffie stopped a deep pass, like played perfect
That
coverage
was
on
an
Debo.
amazing play.
That was incredible. And then earlier in the first half, too, there was a deep shot to Ayuk that Purdy just didn't have time for because there was pressure in his face.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to take all the blame off Purdy. There were some plays where he didn't handle pressure great, but those I don't necessarily blame him for missing the throw when you have people screaming in your face. You're trying to throw a deep shot.
Yeah. And I actually have the play with the wide open touchdown that ended up getting missed because he was getting hit. It was Burford, unfortunately for him. He did not have a very good game, but also
Yeah.
it was an amazing read by Chris Jones. I just want to put that one out there too. Like, as much as Burford didn't execute his block perfectly, it was
Yeah,
also an amazing read. He
that
was
was
looking the
play
whole
action,
time.
right?
Yeah, it was play action. There was a
Yeah.
lot of misdirection going on. And with the flow of the play, he still managed to penetrate through the line. And then he was right in Purdy's lap. So Purdy
Yeah.
just had to kind of fade back.
Yeah. Just like we said, Spags knew exactly the right time. Honestly, it wasn't even exactly the right time. I don't know if you saw the splits, but Spags switched from zone to man and like pretty much switched to single high in the second half. And the Niners just couldn't. They tried a couple times to take advantage of it, but the pressure was just getting there way too fast, and they couldn't take advantage of it. Um, that'll be something interesting to see what happens next year with Purdy if teams switch to cover one. But I don't know if it'll work in the future because even though, like I don't necessarily think that that's Purdy's downfall is cover one because the Ravens absolutely embarrassed him and they were playing cover two and zone. Like I think they played zone 80% of the time compared to man. So I think it's really pressure is the difference there, not necessarily the coverage per se. If you're not
Yeah,
getting pressure, the Niners will absolutely tear you up in the back if you're playing cover one.
absolutely.
Yeah, but
I mean, that's what it comes down to. I feel like the 49ers know exactly what they have to address this offseason, the
yeah,
offensive line. And I don't think we're going to see the same pressure land on Purdy again. And if they do, that is a massive oversight by the 49ers.
yeah.
I'm sure
No,
they won't. They've done an amazing job building a team, but that hole at right tackle that you guys have had for a while, Mike McGlinchey was never all
we
that
had
great.
it even with McGlinchey in pass protection. He's been bad for a very long time.
Yes.
He was a
So
great
it's
run
about time.
blocker, but pass blocking wise, he wasn't really any better than McKivitz was doing. Also the last note before we go into more like specific going over offense and defense. I know you wrote it down in one of your reasons for loss, but the Dre Greenlaw injury and especially not Greenlaw himself, but Burks coming in, really hurt the Niners too from a cover standpoint. The Chiefs absolutely targeted him. I think did you see that it was like 9 for 9? I don't remember the yardage,
It was
but
9 targets for 132 yards, just to
yeah,
be very
that
specific.
he literally gave up, and then that's like 2 touchdown drives worth of yardage just by himself. And I don't necessarily blame him. He's a backup. He's guarding Travis Kelce, and especially on a team where they know how to scheme up their players well. I don't know exactly how much of it was scheme, how much of it was Burks just losing. I'm sure most of it was Burks just losing. And I don't think Dre Greenlaw would have stopped all of it, but I mean, even
No,
if you stop a third of that, half of that, that's still huge.
Mhm.
And those could be big plays because there were some second and long, some third downs where the Chiefs just went straight at him, not just with Travis Kelce, but Noah Gray made a couple of catches too. And
Yeah.
yeah,
He
that
always
was
finds a
that
way to
was
get in the
tough to
game.
watch. That was tough. But anyway, did you have any overall thoughts? Any other overall thoughts before we get into the rest of our breakdown?
I mean, it was a great game, other than the Chiefs winning, which is unfortunate, but amazing football again. Just like last year, where, yeah, the Chiefs won, but we got an amazing game out of it. It's very
Yeah.
sad for 49er fans. There's a lot of them around, but great game. We got an overtime Super Bowl. I think the only other one was the Falcons game that Shanahan also choked. So watch out for that, I guess. If Shanahan goes to overtime, it's not going to be good, but
No, I mean,
great game.
yeah. Yeah, Shanahan. I didn't the reason I don't blame him though this year compared to that year though was the Niners on their last drives, including overtime, did score a touchdown field goal. This was not I don't know, it didn't I think Shanahan didn't do great in the middle of the game, like the second half of the second quarter and like that third quarter was
Mhm.
pretty rough by him in my opinion. But at the end of the game, I didn't necessarily have a problem with Shanahan himself. I'm interested to see what you think about actually we should probably talk about this before we get overall, but um that overtime drive, I'm interested to see how you would have if you would have received or deferred. But in my opinion, it was the defense in that last, like that fourth quarter and overtime. I just felt like there was way too much prevent defense. And like I remember seeing a play, it was like a third down or a second down. It might have been a third down actually, because it was an overtime, but it was like 4 or 5 linemen on the front and then like 10 yards to where the first down marker was, and then like 5 people. That's literally a free, especially in 4 down territory. That's literally a free like 6 to 7 yards. And then you got a, if it was a second down, I don't remember the exact play, but if it was second down, now you got third and short and you got 2 plays to get like 3 yards. So I don't know. I felt like Wilkes in the end of the game really, um, I wish that he had played defense the way that he was playing the rest of the game, because I think that it would have given the Niners a better shot. Because playing conservative, I mean, Mahomes in the past has showed an inability, especially in the 2021 season, to just check it down and take what you give him. But recently, he will absolutely do that. And if you look, I guess I don't want to spoil it, but he might have had a much lower A dot, like a Garoppolo career level A dot this game. And I don't think he's actually getting as much shit as he should. No, I don't think he deserves shit for it, but I think everyone's calling Purdy a game manager, but Mahomes game managed his way to a Super Bowl win, in my opinion, which is it's important to be able to do, but I didn't necessarily think he played fantastic this game.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of how many times do we see the same story? A defense is really good, holding a team
Yeah.
to very few points, and then it gets soft at the end because they don't want to give up a touchdown off a 40-yard bomb. How many times have we seen that all year? Never. The Chiefs' whole thing is that they don't have the explosive plays right now. So
Yeah.
why are you playing the softest defense you can to give them the one thing that they're really good at this year?
Yeah.
Didn't really make sense, especially knowing that you do have a little bit of a hole in the middle of the field. Why are you giving them free yardage? It didn't really make sense. There was one play in the middle of that drive where it was like, I think it was 1st and 10, I believe. And Mahomes just got the ball and immediately ran for like 15 yards. And I turned to Cole and said, hey, Mahomes is going to run it here for 15 yards.
Yeah.
And then he did it.
And
And
he held it on a keeper too on a fourth down that apparently Wilkes did not prepare them for. I don't know, another reason why I don't really like Wilkes as a coordinator, but yeah, Mahomes made magic happen. It wasn't necessarily always with the deep stuff, but he took what the Niners gave him, which every single time was the underneath, pretty much all game, and he won the game. So I got
yeah,
to give him credit. All right, Tyler. So I know you said it off air 10 seconds ago that you would have done what the Niners did. But my goal, I'm gonna try to convince you, and I know you've already read it, so it sounds like you're not convinced, but why I personally would have taken it, even though the Niners were gassed on defense. Now, I will say they were gassed on defense, but they also did have, a little bit of time. It doesn't go straight into playing overtime.
yes.
And honestly, that Niners defense did not really look like they were stopping Mahomes. The only reason I really think the Chiefs even got a field goal, I think they could have gotten a touchdown, but they kind of went into
Me
that
too.
last drive in regulation, just kind of, oh, we only need a field goal, and they kind of settled. I think if they needed to get a touchdown, or their goal was to, they would have just run it on the Niners. So in that vein, I didn't really expect much from the Niners defense. And because of that, if you're gonna give up 7, now my take is based on giving up 7, you're gonna give up 7. I'd rather defer the ball because number one, and I didn't mention this in the breakdown, but if you defer the ball and you're playing on defense, you know that you don't necessarily have to play prevent defense to stop a touchdown because you haven't a drive on offense to match it. And so if you already went on offense, and now that I think about it, I kind of get why Wilkes did play prevent a little bit. Like I get why that's the safe thing, but because they had already only scored 3, you cannot give a touchdown. You can give up a field goal, but not a touchdown. But if you still have a drive left, you can give up a touchdown. And so that allows you to play a little bit more aggressive, knowing that you still have an opportunity to come back. And the other reason why I feel like it would have been worth it, well, I guess there's 2 reasons. Is number one, you know exactly how many points to score.
Yes.
Whereas the Niners were kind of playing guessing. And because of that, because they didn't know how many points they needed to score to beat the Chiefs, they went for a field goal. And so they didn't go for a touchdown because they thought that, oh, well, if the game ends in a field, or if 2 teams get a field goal, then we get the ball back. But the Chiefs in the end, they came out and said it. They were going to go down and win the game or lose the game. They weren't going to let that keep going. So that's one of the reasons, knowing exactly how many points you need. And then also everything becomes 4 down territory, which we've seen with the Lions throughout this season. It's a huge advantage to have that 4th down, especially on 2nd and 3rd down, where you aren't forced to pass the ball, especially when this Niners offensive line was absolutely getting shredded by the Chiefs defensive line. I think having that extra down where you have to kind of keep the Chiefs defense honest would have helped a lot for this team. But anyway, what did you think about the overtime decision?
I mean, I know on paper and analytically, it is better to defer to get the ball second. You know how
Yeah.
many points you need. You know that it's 4 down territory, which is a huge advantage for any team ever. But I do think just because you saw your team get absolutely destroyed and you
Yeah.
saw your team just get really wrecked about it. And if I'm watching my offense or my defense get just hit and hit and hit and driven down the field, and to me, they should have scored a touchdown and just ended the game, but they let it go to
Yeah.
overtime. So to
Yeah.
me, I'm
Yeah.
watching my team give up a touchdown right there, and I'm seeing them do it again. It was no contest. It wasn't like they had to try. It felt very easy. Have a hole up the middle, take that time to scheme up something. Now, that didn't end up happening, and the defense did exactly what they would have done otherwise. But I still would have probably just picked what Shanahan did because I saw my defense get destroyed. I know they're going to do it again. And I would have faith in my offense to be able to score a touchdown. And then you
Yeah.
get the ball back. And if both teams sort of score a touchdown, the overtime rules are just like the old ones where first team to score after that wins. So to
Yeah.
me, you're getting the ball twice. But the fact that they didn't score a touchdown is where they really messed up, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. And I think it's a lot easier to judge a decision after the fact when, like, I said it about draft picks too. Like, I don't really think it's fair to judge a draft pick based on information you have like 4 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, and I do think that the fact that we have 2 differing opinions and that they both are completely logical and reasonable just shows that these overtime rules are so much better than the previous overtime rules, and that
Yeah.
it honestly is kind of fair. Like, even if you have a slight advantage here or there, you're talking a couple percentages. You're probably not talking like a 75% advantage, or I don't know the exact analytics, but the way that it used to be when you received the ball. So I appreciate that. And overall, like you said, I even though I was an Niners fan, I lost. Overall, I have to say this game was extremely fun to watch, and overtime was great, objectively speaking, because you got to see both teams go out there and put it out there. And I totally agree with overtime, regardless of if you receive or whether you receive or not. I think going for the touchdown there, the Niners absolutely needed to do, and they had an opportunity to. It was like well, it was like fourth and something, but they got stopped on like 3rd and 4 or something like that. Like that's not that unreasonable of a play to be able to get. And if you kind of know your defense is going to get shredded anyway, you might as well.
But
Yeah.
your defense isn't going to do anything. You might as well score on offense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we can go right into the core reasons why we lost. First, I'd like you to take it away. What do you think were the 3 reasons the 49ers lost the game? Now, this isn't about the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense was great. Their offense executed when they needed to. Why do you
Yeah.
think the 49ers lost it?
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. I guess mine ended up being like that. I didn't even think about it like that. But
Yeah.
number one reason for loss, I think outside of anything was the punt on the foot. Now, obviously I'm a Niners fan, I'm just complaining. But you don't hear me complaining about holding calls. You haven't heard that all game. All podcasts, I mean. I'm not going to complain about that or officiating. I thought the officiating was totally fine. I didn't necessarily think it biased one team versus the other. That punt on the foot, though, completely changed the momentum of the game. And if you just look at the stats, like Mahomes did not score a touchdown in regulation other than the drive with that punt. He did not lead a single touchdown drive. And in my opinion, that was the number one reason. Otherwise, it would have been 19-12, and that would have been like the biggest loss in postseason history by Mahomes, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But as far as things that you can control, that the Niners could control, I think the number one loss was the O-line being horrendous. They were just bad, especially in the interior. Like they were getting beat on both pass and run blocking. Like it was just not a good effort. And it at points it did feel like an effort thing. Like against it wasn't necessarily the O-line, but like that missed PAT was because the Niners left side of the special teams line did not block. Like if you saw it, it just completely the line looked like this, like completely caved in when I watched that. I was like, you have to be kidding me. But the O-line in general was just bad. I doubt that you have any disagreement about that. But
No, I mean the trenches were the winner of the game at some
yeah,
point.
yeah. And lastly, the last reason for the loss I'd say was conservative decision making defensively, especially in overtime. I felt like Shanahan did fine on his um offensively. I wish that he would have gone for a touchdown, but I think more what I'm talking about is defensively. I wish Wilkes had called a more aggressive game plan in the fourth quarter and in overtime to at least try to win, because it just felt like he was trying not to lose. And I really wish he would have tried to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, fair. That is the goal.
Yeah. Anyway, what were your 3 reasons, Tyler?
I'm not going to cite the punt. I think the punt, yes, it's fluky and completely lucky, but that's football.
Yeah.
At some point, that is so uncontrolled. Like the special teams definitely are a reason they lost. I think they're my number 4. I'll get into that a little bit at the end, but the punt was completely just that's why they played the games. Like that wasn't a skilled special teams play on the Chiefs. It wasn't a bad play on the 49ers.
It was a flip of a coin. Absolutely.
It's just something that happened. And I mean, credit to Ray McLeod for even getting close to getting that ball.
Yeah.
Like he did an amazing job seeing that it hit the foot and just jumping for it.
I mean, it also got lucky that it bounced away that Raymond McLeod could get it. Like that could have bounced the other way, not toward Raymond McLeod, and went straight to like a Chiefs player too.
Yeah. Yeah. In my opinion, things like that, onside kicks, that kind of thing, unless it's a well executed onside kick, a lot of those things are very chance based. And just to me, there were so many other reasons the 49ers lost to where a punt could get to that point. And I'll get into that. But the first thing, and I think this one's in bold for me, the offense failed early and it just wasn't good.
Yeah.
Like McCaffrey's fumble in the first drive, when you're getting the ball first against the Chiefs, you got to punch him early, but you had to settle for a field goal after already fumbling the ball. So to me, in the first 2 drives that you got, you failed because you get the ball first, you fumble in the red zone. And then you're lucky enough, they don't score. You get the ball back. You get all the way down and have to settle for a field goal. Just like that, you've had 2 opportunities. You could make this game 14-0. Instead, it's 3-0.
Yeah.
11 points were left on the table just right there. You want to talk about race to 30? You could have been halfway there in the first 2 drives.
Yeah.
To me, I'm extremely disappointed in that because they showed the ability to get down the field. They could get to the red zone. So it's not like the offense was just bad. It's that they had no actual drive to really take advantage of the opportunities they were given. And if I had to pick one mantra for why the 49ers lost, they did not take advantage of any opportunity they were given. They were
That's
handed
fair.
so many opportunities to take advantage of. And the only team to take advantage of any opportunity was the Chiefs taking advantage of that punt. Everything else was like, oh, Pacheco fumbled, nothing really happened from it. McCaffrey fumbled, nothing really happened from it. Interception, nothing really happened from it. There were so many opportunities for both teams, but primarily the 49ers. And then,
Yeah.
of course, you go into the second half, which is my number 3 reason. And it was the same story. You get the ball after the Chiefs don't score on the opening drive, even though they were looking like maybe they were going to come back. You get the ball again with the Chiefs not scoring. So, yeah, you didn't get a great first half, but now you've had the whole halftime to scheme up something. That whole first drive is scripted. And Shanahan knows what he's calling no matter what. It's not like a game time. What's
No,
he seen?
he absolutely knows what he's gonna do.
That first drive is scripted, and that first drive script wasn't good. And I love Shanahan. I still love Shanahan despite this game, but his offense did not do anything with the opportunities that they were given. The 49ers defense, despite really not being that great in this game, did an amazing job being effective. Like, there were just so many missed opportunities that I really think the 49ers lost in this game. And something that I talk about a lot in baseball is if anyone's like, oh, that one call by the umpire lost us the game. Probably true. The punt was a touchdown that ended up being a key reason you lost the game, right? But why
Yeah,
did
but
you
out
let
of
it
things,
get
I get what
down to
you're
that
saying
point?
totally. Like out of things that were your control. Yeah,
And at some point, why'd you let it be in the control of luck?
yeah,
Why are you letting it be to the point where a Chiefs get one fluky drive and all of a sudden they're back in the game and you can lose because of it? Why are you letting one bad call from a referee or an umpire get it to the point where you're stuck? And it's not like a close game like the Rams Saints game where that was an egregiously missed call and they should have won. It was also a very close game. This is a game that the 49ers played better than the Chiefs in the first half, had more opportunities than the Chiefs in the first half, and did nothing with it. So they squandered so many opportunities so early and then continuous throughout the game that to me,
yeah.
it's their own fault for the punt, even though the punt was completely luck. It's their fault for being in the
It
position where
was
that
their
punt
fault
was
that the
really.
punt lost them. Yeah, 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 yeah. It was their fault that they were in a position where the punt ended up. Those points ended up losing the game. Yeah, I agree. It felt like it did feel like there were a lot of times where Shanahan would kind of get something going, and then a player would screw something up. Or especially in that first half, like the first drive, Shanahan was scheming up some good stuff, and then McCaffrey fumbled like 30 yards away from a touchdown, or I don't remember exactly where it was, but
The red zone.
it felt like they were driving. It felt like they were driving. And then the
Yeah.
second one, they're having a solid start to the drive, and then Trent Williams holds and pulls. I think that he also committed a penalty the play before it too, before
Yeah.
the
There was
hold.
a
But ended
false
up,
start and a hold.
yeah, so it was a false start. It was like third and second and 15 or third and 15, and then they get a big play to George Kittle, and it was like a scramble drill kind of thing, and then Trent Williams was holding. Now, yes, there are a lot of people who are going to say, well, why didn't the refs call the Chiefs? No one was really called. It was like the only hold of the game. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah. Aside from egregious defensive holding, like
Yeah.
refereeing wasn't a big part of this. Yes, there were missed holds. Who cares? That happens in every game for every team.
Yeah.
But I think the number 2 reason, and something that I also want to talk about, we talked about a little bit, is Burks in the hole in the middle. Now, I'm not going to blame Burks. He shouldn't have been out there. It's
Yeah.
not like the 49ers' fault because that's such a freak accident. You can't plan for your guy to tear his Achilles like that.
Yeah.
But nobody helped him out. There was no scheme help. There was nothing like you have the all pro number 1 linebacker in the game, Fred Warner, next to him, and he was still useless.
I mean,
That's a scheming problem.
yeah, it's exactly what I'm talking about with Wilkes. Like he might have on paper not have seemed like he did a bad job, but I don't think Wilkes was elevating this defense at all.
At best, he's a good coach because a great coach can take somebody who's a weakness and find their strengths and only let them play to those strengths. And yes, their weakness will still show, but you have Fred Warner next to him. Why are you
Yeah.
letting him be the hole in the middle? Fred Warner should be playing man at that point then.
Yeah.
Like you have safeties, you got all sorts of things. The Chiefs aren't gonna like To me, there were so many opportunities from the coaching staff and from the offense. And Burks is to blame in terms of performance. 9 targets for 132 yards is bad. But how did the scheme not try to help him out when they saw the 5 targets first? How halfway through did you not go, hey, man, he's getting torched. Let's not do that anymore. Let's try to find a way to make sure it's not him on Kelsey. It's not him up the middle. There are so many ways that you could utilize a linebacker to make sure that he's not put in that position. And he
Yeah.
continued to do so. It's something that I see every week with Washington. We have bad linebackers. I see it constantly. You can scheme them up to be better. That's why we have really good safeties. But it's the same thing. At some point, you got a linebacker out there who wasn't prepared to be out there. He really shouldn't have been out there. And you didn't help him at all. So to me, there are 3 reasons that they lost this game. And number one, and I would say 90% of the reason they lost are the early offensive failures. And then, of course, Burks in the middle of the hole, because it's not necessarily Burks, but everything in the middle. Pacheco was able to run fairly well. The 9 targets for 132 yards and the slow start to that second half.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I got no problems with those 3 reasons. I forgot to mention too, when I mentioned that I felt like Shanahan would do some good things and the players would screw up. I also felt like there were times where the players weren't playing bad and then Shanahan wasn't really doing good things, like that slow start to the second half. And like the decision making, not necessarily play calling, but decision making as far as like not going for some 4th downs, not trying to go up, being conservative with the play calling, running on 1st down still a good amount. Like there are aspects where I really hope that Shanahan watches the film and doesn't say, I hope he doesn't watch me and hear me say, oh well, I would have won with a punt, and he really looks deep and sees what could I have done better. And
how could we have been up 20 points?
Yeah, because the way they were playing, it felt like they were up 21-3 and they were up 10-3.
Yep.
Like, man, that was
all of a sudden when the Chiefs got the ball and it was like, oh, are they going to score and make this game tied?
Yeah.
Like, it didn't feel like it should have been tied. It felt like the 49ers were cruising to an easy Super Bowl win.
No.
And I was like, man, this is kind of nice, And then all of a sudden the Chiefs got the ball back and they scored a field goal. The Chiefs got the ball back and they were going to score a touchdown. You're like, oh no.
It honestly
the
kind of,
49ers going to drop this.
I don't remember exactly how I felt last year, but last year I kind of felt like the Eagles dominated a lot of that game and just lost. Now they put up 30 and lost. It was a race to 42 in that game.
Yeah.
But it felt like a game where like the Chiefs just do just enough to hang with you.
Yeah. And if you're not going to be able to take advantage of any opportunity you're given, because they don't give you that many opportunities. So when you get one, take advantage of it. And they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we kind of really did a deep dive in the Niners offense. Do you have anything more you wanted to say about the offense?
No. I mean, I hope they take a look at this game, take a look at the whole season, and invest in their offensive line. That's my takeaway.
Yeah. That's
good
one
in
big
every other
takeaway.
perspective.
Honestly, this game and this season really taught me, like, and you asked me my rankings as far as positional value goes, and I consistently have said quarterback, wide receiver, corner, and then tackle and edge. But below that tier, I really feel like it has cemented to me where like tackle is just as valuable as receiver or cornerback. And honestly, the Chiefs are a great case study in that, where they pretty much get rid of all their receivers. Now, they absolutely would not have won this game if not for Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice. But they have a great offensive line. They de-invested in the wide receivers, and they still have won 2 Super Bowls. They've won more Super Bowls with a really, really talented offensive line and not a very good receiver core than without. Now, granted, the Bucks game, they lost both their starting tackles. That wasn't really their fault, but yeah. Anyway, do you have anything more to talk about the Niners defense? I mean, pretty much this whole session so far has been talking about the Niners. So I don't know how much more you have to.
Yeah, we can move on from them. I mean, we've talked about the 49ers. I beat them to death, I feel.
Yeah, I agree.
I liked what they did. I think I need to say that. Yes, they squandered every opportunity they were given. I still thought they played very well.
Yeah.
And I don't think this team's going to go away necessarily. He's still got a couple years of Purdy on his cheap contract.
Yeah.
And I mean, hear me out. Crazy thought here. The Tampa Bay game immediately changed how the Chiefs approached their team. And you have a lot of money tied up in San Francisco that's not in that offensive line. Maybe you see a little bit of a Chiefs approach, not the whole thing, but you see a little bit of Chiefs approach. You see a lot of offensive linemen taken in the draft and a lot of free agent signings, that kind of thing. And we
Yeah.
see an entirely new offensive line minus Trent Williams. I would love to see that. Because to me, that shows that they learned from this game. And Shanahan goes, yeah, my coaching can do a lot. My scheme can do a lot. It has. It's worked miracles on a lot of people. But
Yeah.
as long as you keep bleeding wins at these offensive line positions, especially right
Yeah.
tackle is such a big hole for them. That's been a hole. We talked about that a little bit. If they can address the right tackle needs and they can address one interior offensive lineman and they come in with two good offensive linemen, one on the tackle and one in the interior, I don't care where. Center, probably a better idea. But if they pick a guard, cool. They can come in with those two things. They learned from the Super Bowl and are learning from what the Chiefs did because the Chiefs came back and won 2 Super Bowls, like you said. The Chiefs took that as a note, went, okay, let's change our perspective. And I feel like John Lynch has the ability to do that.
Yeah. He's shown the ability to be reactionary, whether or not that's good or bad. But he has absolutely shown the ability. I wouldn't mind if honestly if we de-invest a little bit in the defensive line. Like
Eric
not
Armstead.
re-signing Chase Young, getting maybe getting rid of that Eric Armstead contract, especially because he's getting up there in age and he's had a lot of injuries in the last couple of
Just hasn't been
years.
that effective since he got the contract. Like he kind of
Yeah, he
disappeared.
hasn't. No, he knew exactly what he was doing. I got no problem with him. He knew exactly what he was doing in that 2019 year where he had his best year in a contract year. Dude, contract years scare me. If I was a GM, I'd be like, oh God, you have to be kidding me. Um, but yeah, anyway, unless you have anything else you want to get into the Chiefs offense.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Said it.
You want to start first?
Sure. I mean, they were ineffective. They were getting silenced in that first half. And
Yeah.
that's something that needs to be focused on a little bit is the Chiefs didn't necessarily deserve to win this game with how they played in regulation. It was more, I would say, it's not that the 49ers lost this game. The 49ers lost the regulation game.
Yeah.
And then in overtime, the Chiefs woke up and won. So the
Yeah.
Chiefs did win this game, but the 49ers absolutely lost the regulation part.
Yeah.
The whole 60 minutes of play that you're supposed to have, the Chiefs did not look like they were going to win and don't look like they deserve to win. And
They
then you go
didn't
to
even have a
overtime, they're
lead
great.
at any point in regulation. Or no,
No.
they had a lead, but the Niners offense never left the field without a lead.
Yeah. And I mean, we can talk about it forever, but aside from that last few couple of drives, and in my opinion, like I said, they could have scored a touchdown and just ended the game, but they almost like played with their prey. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
It felt controlled and it felt cold and killer.
That's exactly how I felt too. This game went to overtime and I did not have a good feeling about it.
No, as soon as it went to over, as soon as they got the ball back, it was kind of second
Yeah,
fiddle.
no, I agree. That was another like split second decision. I really wish Shanahan had gone for it, and it was like 2 minutes, like right after the 2 minute warning, or maybe it was right before the 2 minute warning. I don't remember, but it was right around
It was
there.
after.
It was like 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. Um, they miss. They just miss it. Ayuk was wide open on a slant, and McDuffie came in, pressured. Purdy didn't target where the pressure came from, and tried to go to I think it was Juwan Jennings on the outside, left outside. But I wish that they
Are you
had
talking about
been
the
more
Chris
aggressive.
Jones play? Because that
Chris
was the
Jones
third and a
was in
4 in the end zone.
overtime. Chris Jones was in
Ah,
overtime. I
that's
was
right.
talking
That's right.
about the
Yeah.
regulation. No, you're right though. Chris Jones blew up a lot of plays, but yeah, the Chiefs offense, back to what we were talking about. The Chiefs offense just didn't feel great during regulation and in overtime, like when I was watching that, it just felt like dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk, and the Niners just kept giving it to him, and that was rough to watch. That they just absolutely they just gave him the win on they gave him the drive on offense as far as the Chiefs go.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, 4 field goals in regulation. Besides that one touchdown, off the punt. Like the Chiefs didn't really get much going until like the last 2 minutes of the game in overtime.
And I mean, you said it a little bit, right? You can't let them stay in the game, but
Yeah.
that's what the Chiefs are good at. The 49ers played into the Chiefs game, and when they woke up, they were electric.
Yeah.
They proved that once again, we don't need a receiver if we have Travis Kelce.
Though,
Like, I
yeah.
think they're going to invest in some because they did see how this season was not very fun without a good wide receiver.
Yeah.
They've
They
taken some
kind of got
interesting
they kind of
picks,
got
but
lucky throughout these playoffs too. Like I know I sent you it, but according to analytics, now you can say how do they know the win percentages? Like how are they calculating it? But they had like by far the most win percentage added of any team since 2018 in the playoffs. Um, but yeah, I don't think that the lack of receivers hurt them in a sense because their offense did a good job of scheming people open and they just weren't having people catch the ball. Um, Rip to Niners, what would have been Niners legend Kadarius Toney, who was a healthy scratch for the game, man. That was a big loss.
right, big loss for the Niners. Same. The biggest loss of the whole game was Jawan Jennings not being able to become Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
He should have been
Yeah.
Super Bowl MVP. I'm very sad about that.
I know I'm sad about it too. And I wanted it to be Juszczyk. He had a good game, but Jawan Jennings did honestly deserved it. He played so great. I think he was the highest graded player of the entire game too. It was like 84. It's a
Should have
pretty
been a 99. He scored the only 2 touchdowns of regulation for the
yeah,
Niners.
yeah. And he almost had a third in overtime.
Right.
He was open.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you
Jawan
did you
Jennings for MVP.
yeah, did you notice too? He cooked no. He beat L'Jarius Sneed for his one receiving touchdown. And then Ayuk had beaten L'Jarius Sneed in overtime on the same play Juwan Jennings was open in the end. Sneed did not have that great a game.
No, which is
And
interesting. But they didn't target him.
no,
They
they
targeted a
didn't.
lot of McDuffie, which was interesting.
I know the best corner.
The
That was
best corner in the most versatile position, you target him and not the
yeah,
safeties. Take them deep.
yeah. Well, that was honestly a perfect segue into the Chiefs defense. What did you think besides McDuffie? We
I
already think
loved
he
it.
played great.
Yes, I'm a huge McDuffie guy. I've loved McDuffie since the draft. I thought he was great. I didn't think he'd be this great. Like I thought he was going to be a really good corner, not an elite corner. So good for him, right? I mean, he's small. That's what's so interesting about it. He's small. I made a film breakdown last Christmas ish, and it was all about how he really struggled last year when he was outside, and then or when he was in the slot. So he moved outside and was actually killing it. This year he moves to the slot a lot and is doing amazing.
Yeah,
So that's Spags once again developing a good DB into a great DB, which is an amazing process. I'm really glad how they do it because that means they don't have to pay Snead.
yeah,
If Spags can keep doing this, they can do what Howie Roseman does, where you don't buy into a corner, you buy into a safety or whatever it is. You buy into a tight end, you buy into your defensive tackle. Whatever position is you want to invest in, you can because Spags keeps doing this with defensive backs.
yeah.
So he's made a case to where I don't think you need to pay Snead. I think you let Snead walk. You draft a corner. He's going to be good. You still have Joshua Williams. You still have Trent McDuffie.
And yeah,
And
and
if
like you're
anything,
saying, this scheme is really friendly. It's like the exact same way like the Shanahan scheme is friendly for offensive line and makes them look better. This scheme is very friendly to corners.
yeah, and it does take a little bit to learn it. That's why they start off so slow when they have a new couple guys coming in. But once they get the scheme, every year it happens. And every year people are like, why are they good? Their defense is elite by the end of the postseason.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so do you want to go into your key takeaways of the game? We've done a lot on both teams, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my main takeaway was kind of around the QB position. I felt like Purdy played pretty good. I felt like he missed a couple plays. He missed a couple throws definitely, but I didn't. I think and I'll get into it when I show the table of the two efficiency metrics as far as comparing Mahomes and Purdy. But I felt like he played good enough to win them that game. And I think he solidified himself. Now I hate when people make such sweeping statements with just one game. Like you really need a larger sample size than one game. But I feel like this game kind of cemented him and the tier that I felt like he was in, which is like definitely not that like definitely not the Mahomes tier, not the Allen, Herbert, Burrow kind of tier at next. You could put Lamar in there when he's playing at an MVP level, but kind of like that third, fourth tier where I think he's good enough with a good enough team to win a Super Bowl, which is not what I would say about a lot of quarterbacks, like most quarterbacks in the league. I feel like Purdy is like a solid top 10, top 8 quarterback. I don't know if you agree with me top 8, but
I
I
don't know
felt
about top
like,
eight.
huh?
I'll have to think about top eight. I don't know about
Yeah,
that.
I that's why I say like top, like somewhere around like 8 to 10, where like coming into the season you definitely didn't feel that way about him. But I feel like Purdy played great overall the whole season, including the game. Not great in the game, but like solid, good in the game, given how much pressure he was under. And yeah, and then the other takeaway was just if you don't have a top 10 QB, don't even try, honestly, at this point. We've seen two
Yeah.
straight years of teams with quarterbacks even playing at a top 10 level with top teams, like top rosters. As far as the Niners had an incredible roster this year, top to bottom, and same with the Eagles last year, lose to Mahomes. And not even because Mahomes' team was like that incredible overall. It was just Mahomes. Like if you don't have a good enough quarterback, and you don't, and even with a good team, I don't even know what you're trying at this point. Unless your goal is to make the playoffs, sell jerseys, make money. If you're trying to win a Super Bowl, keep swinging. Keep swinging.
Yeah. I mean, quarterback's huge. That's been the key topic for a long time at this point. People are investing more and more and trading up for a quarterback and finding their guy. I mean, look at the Panthers. They
Yeah.
traded away their future. Look at the Denver Broncos. They traded away a whole lot for a guy who didn't end up working out there, but a guy who had potential to be that type of quarterback for him. So
Yeah.
teams
Yeah.
have proven they're willing to do that and see it just like you do, where they see a top 10 quarterback is huge. I still think there is an opportunity for teams without that elite quarterback to be able to win a Super Bowl. But it
I think
does have
that
to be
you
very
can.
masterfully done.
Yeah, I think that you can, but they still have to play at a, like, if they're, you need him to play well in a small sample size. So like Nick Foles is like the perfect example of like he went on to win a Super Bowl, but that Super Bowl run, he had the highest graded playoff run of any quarterback ever, ever.
Yeah. It was like
And
a
and it was with
92.9, I think.
and it was with a legit team too. That Eagles team was very good. Since then though, like has a quarterback won a Super Bowl that was not playing at an elite level?
I mean, no,
I'm talking like the last like 6 7 years
no.
since really the end of that Brady beginning of Mahomes era. It just feels like we'll see what happens in the future, but it just feels like I'm more talking about like the Bears. If you think that you can load up a roster on Justin Fields and win this, good luck, man. Last year when you were signing Jimmy Garoppolo as the Raiders, not sure what you're doing. This year,
Well,
if
they don't
a
know
team,
either. They're going to cut him,
yeah, they don't know
which
either.
he just got suspended for
Yeah,
pets.
yeah,
And you lost your job to Aiden O'Connell and were cheating.
yeah.
That's impressive.
He was bad even with the Peds. And then lastly, my last quarterback that I want to mention, Russell Wilson. If you think you're going to win a Super Bowl with the way Russ is currently playing,
He was pretty good last year. He was efficient.
he was
He just
efficient.
has to go to
He
a
was
team
like
that's a quarterback
he
away.
was like 15 to me. Like he was like middle.
Yeah.
That's
Interesting fit.
it's interesting, but
Atlanta.
I still don't think, like, does Russ win with this Niners team?
Maybe. Does he do better under pressure than Purdy? Because then, yes.
Russ has, I don't know. Russ is not great. I don't know.
I
Recently,
know.
Russ is not playing.
That's the
If
problem.
your answer isn't confidently yes, Russ is doing it with this team, what team is he doing it with?
Atlanta. That's my hot
Okay,
take.
Tyler. Okay.
I think Atlanta is one good draft play. They got the O line, they got the receivers, they got the defense. That defense is elite.
It's good. It is good. That
Put him
defense.
in there. He plays that efficient football. I want it.
Okay, you
Granted,
know
I don't
what?
think he'll do it again. Sean Payton is a good offensive schemer, not a very good head coach, but
No, he's bad. Yeah.
a good
Um,
schemer. He did a good job. There was a lot of good receiving options out there. So
yeah.
he's going to be an interesting one for our free agent episode.
Yeah. Um, any more takeaways for general takeaways from the game?
No, I mean
All
the
right.
Chiefs
Well,
built a great team.
yeah, pretty much two pretty good teams overall come in the better quarterback wins.
Yep.
Before we end, oh shoot, I guess I'm showing everyone my notes. Here we go. Um, the moment that I've been waiting for, Tyler, and I think that there's one column here that shows exactly which quarterback it is,
Yes, it
but
does.
which one do you think was Mahomes?
The one on the left, because he
Yeah.
has that one turnover worthy play. He threw a bad pick.
Yeah, but let's say honestly, I felt like I forgot about that pick when I was making the chart until I saw the turnover play. But even the one big time throw, I think if you're gonna guess if one quarterback had it, it's probably gonna be um Mahomes. But if you take away these columns, which one would you guess? Be honest.
I mean,
Can you even make a guess?
I think the time to throw would be my answer for that one.
Yeah, that's
And the
fair.
A dot, just because I know Mahomes was taking what the defense was giving him, and that would absolutely slander his A dot.
Yeah,
And the time to throw was huge. The pressure was huge. The
yeah,
49ers really had to focus on making sure the time to throw can get a little bit higher if they needed to.
yeah,
Like that's a very short one. I did a whole research project on it once.
yeah.
I will say that is very small time to throw, and they should aim to get that a little bit higher.
They should now. I mean, ideally, on average, you don't want to be above. Like, I don't think you want to be at like 3.2, but I think that your team needs to be able to function if your time is 3.2 if you want to win the
Yes.
Super Bowl. That's one takeaway that I have coming. Like, you can't win without a pretty if you don't have a pretty solid offensive line, you're not winning. Like this Niners offensive line was not like I'd even say like top 12. I think that's good enough. This Niners line was like 20.
That
If
was not a good
if
offensive
that,
line.
if that 20 is being generous because of Trent Williams. Um,
Love Trent Williams.
but anyway, I wanted to put this out there because Purdy's going to get a lot of slander for being a game manager. And this is the game manager stat right here. This right here, 6.2, is a horrendous A dot. As far as you want to talk about game manager, you know what? I'm going to look it up right now. What is Jimmy G's career A dot? Take a guess.
6.
6. Yeah, it's like 6 point. I can't find it right now, but I remember I looked it up 2 days ago. It was 6.8. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's
Um,
high. Higher than expected, I
yeah,
guess.
higher than you expected. This is a game manager A dot, and because of that, it's not only because of that, but I really feel like Mahomes is going to get a lot of credit for a lot of what I feel like was kind of garbage time, even though it wasn't. It was a close game and they won. It felt like they were down. He needed a throw. Like he has a lot of stats on there and a lot of rushing yards too for him. But
Mhm.
Mahomes did not really play that much better than Purdy, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying Purdy played well or Mahomes played well. I thought they played average. That's exactly what 73.9 is. Not average, but like average for a starter. That's like
Decent.
exactly it.
Yeah.
I felt like they had pretty similar great games. Mahomes did hold the ball. You felt it a lot longer under pressure than Purdy did. But they played pretty similarly, and yeah, I don't know. I just want to make sure Purdy gets that credit, and Mahomes, I take away that credit from him.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that marks the end of our Super Bowl episode. Hopefully, this one doesn't corrupt. We'll see you guys next week. We got a whole lot planned. We have a whole lot that we bit off. Now we got to chew it.
Yeah.
But it'll be a lot of us over the next 10 weeks before the NFL draft because that's our Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Or at least that's my Super Bowl. I love the NFL draft.